folks. Welcome to another episode of The Weirdly Random. My name is Steve, and this is my co-host, Reilly.
Hello.
And we are here. Reilly, how are you?
I'm doing good.
You're doing well, or you're doing good?
Both.
Both. A question of morality and of well-being. That's good to know. So this is episode 2, and today's topic, we're going to be talking about our favorite video game franchise of all time, The Legend of Zelda. And it's not Mario, it's not Sonic, it's not any of those other mainstream games. It is by far, hands down, The Legend of Zelda.
It is great.
It is. And you've actually got some Zelda gear here on.
Yep.
The Zelda sweatshirt, zipper shirt, and the Hyrule crest that's going on there, with the wings and stuff like that. Very nice. And so we decided that we're going to create this episode. This is another one of our favorites. If you listen to our first episode, we talked about some of our top favorites, and The Legend of Zelda was in there with our top video game, and so we decided we would put an episode together that was just on The Legend of Zelda, but I think we realized we probably need more than one.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. So today we're going to kind of cover broad strokes, but I think that we'll talk about some other aspects of The Legend of Zelda in other episodes, right? So what are some of the things we could cover in future episodes?
Lore, items, dungeons, many different things, characters.
Favorite games within the Legend of Zelda series. Mm-hmm. I know there's a couple of other podcasts out there. I've been listening to one right now where they do playthroughs. They do where they review an episode. They take a whole episode to review a game of The Legend of Zelda, whether it's Minish Cap or Link to the Past, etc. So, so we have some options here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So whether you are a video game enthusiast or you are a fan of Zelda games, a lot of what we share today may make sense to you. If it doesn't make sense to you, just go along with us. Just hang out and hear our nerdiness for sure. But one of the things I was thinking about this as we talk about this, that I am highly interested in The Legend of Zelda.
Puns.
I love the puns.
It's quite punny.
It is. So why don't we, make like a Lionel and charge into this episode?
Puns. More puns.
More puns. So, let's talk a little bit about what The Legend of Zelda actually is in broad strokes.
Okay.
So let's do it this way. How would you, Reilly, describe The Legend of Zelda to a friend who knows nothing about it?
I would describe it as being a action-adventure game, kind of like an RPG, role-playing game. And I would describe it as, an action-adventure game. That's basically it.
Okay, action-adventure game. So am I saving the damsel in distress? Am I fighting dragons? Am I shooting aliens? Like, what am I doing in this game?
It's more, a few games are a damsel in distress type thing, but most times it's a collect pieces of an item type thing.
Okay. So collecting things, items, okay. What's, generally speaking, so who are the main characters in this if you're describing it to a friend who knows nothing? Pretend I know nothing.
You play as Link, a person who is trying to save Hyrule, which is the land that you take place in.
So our protagonist, our main hero,
Link,
is
yes.
Link. Okay, the land that I'm fighting in is called Hyrule.
Yes.
Okay.
Big bad guy, Ganon or Ganondorf. Sometimes can be both.
To keep it simple, yeah, okay.
And then the quote-unquote damsel in distress or the princess of our majestic land would be Zelda, which is the person on the title of the series.
Sure. So The Legend of Zelda, I'm not playing as Zelda.
Yes.
Right. As often is confused from newbies and those that maybe not played the game before. They hopefully quickly learn that it's really about Link.
Yes.
And The Legend of Zelda. Okay. So we have our protagonists. We have our I guess they're called antagonists. You know, your baddie. You've got your woman that you're trying to save, the girl, and there's challenges and things that you have to complete. And so, okay, so and there's different games in layman's speak. There's different games where this comes out to play, right? So, so not always the same time period, not always the same story, but various versions of what we just said, right?
Yes. Okay.
So one of the things what I love about this game, this action adventure game, in a lot of ways, there's some music that's really catchy, that I kind of work to at times. The soundtrack's not too bad. Some iconic themes that we hear. And some of those are, what's your favorite, let's say?
Song? I would have to say The Cursed Overworld from The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. One of those handheld games, which not very many people have played.
Okay, so you make a good point to clarify here for our listeners who might not be familiar with this. So it comes out on Nintendo, various Nintendo consoles, whether it be handheld, including the original NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, back in the 80s. Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Nintendo DS. We've got Nintendo 64, the Wii, Wii U, now the Switch. So, and Spirit Tracks was one of those mobile games, handheld games, that came out. So that was, you would say that song is probably your favorite of all of them.
Yes, it's a very catchy tune.
Interesting. I sometimes will just listen to any of it. I don't know that I have a favorite, but I do love to listen to it. In fact, The Legend of Zelda, because the storyline is so rich and so complicated, there's so much that needs to be done. There's so much related to it. It's not just a simple storyline of, two brothers who are plumbers that try to go down a sewer pipe and save the day. I mean, there's a lot more to The Legend of Zelda, which I really appreciate. And so I kind of get sucked in. I get sucked into the storyline. Yeah. I get sucked into all the different things. In fact, it's sort of, at times, has become, I don't want to say the word obsession, but, it's something I really, really can get into, really learn and research. I'm a research kind of guy. I love to know all the details. So I can see where this would be something I'd really gravitate towards and have. So in some respects, I mean, it can be even a, I don't know, we were talking about, you have the T-shirt on. I've got some decals here on my computer and things like that. So sometimes the Legend of Zelda sometimes can be sort of like a lifestyle, I think.
Yeah, I guess if you want to phrase it like that.
So I'm living my best Link life. If you get that, you see these
it's
decals
funny.
out there that say #SaltLife or something on their cars because I guess people love the beach. I do not love the beach, but we should do like stickers or something that says #LinkLife with a Triforce or something into it.
That'd be quite cool.
That'd be kind of fun. And so if you don't know what the Triforce is, there's 3 pieces of the Triforce, 3 triangles that form together. You have the Triforce of Power, Triforce of Wisdom, and the Triforce of Courage. And in those 3 main characters, each one kind of represents
one of those 3 pieces.
Right. And so why don't you talk to us a little bit about what each one represents?
Triforce of Power, which is normally the top of the 3 triangles. It's like a big triangle split into 3 triangles.
Yep.
And the top triangle would normally be the thing of power, the Triforce of Power, which would normally be held by Ganon. I get these ones confused. I think the wisdom one is the left triangle, which has normally been held by Zelda, and the last one, which is the right triangle, is Link.
Yeah, actually, it's right here we have in front of us here on the table, we have The Legend of Zelda, the Encyclopedia. So here's Ganon. On the front cover, there is this this thing. And so it has, right here, Ganon at the top. Looking at it on the left, you have, here the Zelda of the Triforce of Wisdom, and then Link here, the Triforce of Courage. And so, you can kind of see where this works out. Which is here on the cover of the encyclopedia. If you're listening to this, you can't see that, but that's the idea, right? So each of these represents something. Now, Reilly, one of the things I'm loving about having this conversation with you and kind of talking about this, I want to keep a watch on our time here too, but you've played a lot more of the games than I have. And so I've played typically just the main console games. Super Nintendo was probably A Link to the Past was probably my first game. I did go back and try to play, through my video game rental store growing up. It was called Video 9, and used to rent video games. So I remember renting, I think The Legend of Zelda, the first game, probably Legend of Zelda 2. But anyway, I've played a number of them, but you've played many of them. So what are some of the ones that you've played, I think, that you have more experience in than I do?
So you just want me to talk about which ones I've played?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
I can do that. The ones I've played I played the first one. I'm actually quite a long way through that. Second one, I've barely touched. I mean, we have the Nintendo Switch Online. We tried playing on that, and I'm just like, nope. I picked it up, played for like 10 minutes, and then I put it down because I'm like, this game is either too hard or I just can't get the logistics of it.
Okay, so you're playing on Virtual Console,
yes.
The Nintendo Switch Online subscription base, so not the original one where we're sticking the cartridge into the Nintendo.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about. So, you know what? I think I have a Nintendo. I thought I did. I thought I kept it. Where would that be? I might have it somewhere in a closet somewhere. So we'll have to get that out and maybe do an episode on pulling out the Nintendo. Anyway, so A Legend of Zelda, the first one, and Link 2 or Zelda 2, right? What else have you played?
I've played A Link to the Past, got a bit of the way through it. I'm just going to start naming games. I'm trying to not going through chronological. I've played A Link Between Worlds, which is another one of those handheld DS games. I beat that like 3 times. Super fun game. Spirit Tracks, which is one of the songs, which was the game of my favorite song. I'm actually just have to beat the final boss. I'm super close to that. Majora's Mask, I've beaten the first dungeon out of the 4/5. I would say 4.
Yeah, I've not gotten very far in Majora's Mask. Or Ocarina of Time, I don't think. I remember playing it many years ago, but I don't know that I've played it recently and gotten very far. And in fact, I kind of find it frustrating after I've played Breath of the Wild. But in fact, I find most other Zelda games annoying now that I've learned and have played Breath of the Wild. But anyway, so you've played quite a few, and certainly Breath of the Wild, which we've talked about, and you've watched me play Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild many times, and so that's kind of fun. We've played a number of them. One of the things so as of when we're recording this, just a few days ago, earlier this week, Nintendo had a Nintendo Direct, and they released, there's been a lot of hype about the next game in the Legend of Zelda series. And so the next game, for the last couple of years, they've been talking about the sequel to Breath of the Wild. So it's been then dubbed Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until this week that they released not just the name of the game, they released also a release date and a new trailer, which has the interwebs
going crazy.
buzzing. And so all the theories and all the hype about the game is all coming back, and people are super excited about what it could be and what it is and all that kind of stuff. So with that, I mean, the exciting news. So we now know the title, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Interesting.
And the release date comes out. It will be available May 12th, 2023. So very excited about that. And in fact, I didn't pre-order it, but I'm like
on the verge of getting it.
I'm going to. I'm certain of it.
It's just such a hype
game. At some point,
game.
there's so much, and I love Breath of the Wild, so it would make sense that I would, get this one too, and really looking forward to it.
And the first announcement was made at the time of recording 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago. Yeah, it's gonna be around 6.5 years ago.
That can't be right. There's no way, because Breath of the Wild came out in 2017, didn't it?
Yeah.
So they didn't announce Breath of the Wild 2.
I think it was 6 months later.
I don't know. They were definitely talking about another game. But anyway, the internet, I'm sure will fact check us. But,
yeah.
We can put it in the show notes. But we love this game. We love Breath of the Wild. Really looking forward to Breath of the Wild 2. We love... we've got, I mentioned the book. We've got 3 of the books here on our table, including the Encyclopedia, the Hyrule Historia, and Creating a Champion.
Which is also known as Masterworks.
Yes, it is. That's what it was called in Japan.
Yeah.
But we've got the T-shirts. We've got, we even have some action figures. I've got some decal stickers, all that kind of stuff. A little bit of costumes. I've got socks that I have the socks. They're a little warm, and so I like to wear socks. I'm a sock kind of guy, but I don't like heavy socks that come all the way up my leg. I do. And that's what these are. So anyway, so here's I don't know if Reilly knows this, but I'm gonna ask him a piece of trivia. Did you know, Reilly? Did you know that your mother and I, many years ago, we went to a concert that was the music from The Legend of Zelda? It was called Symphony of the Goddess. Did you know that?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Well, okay, so I'm going to remind you, or tell you again. But yeah, so we went, and it was down in Philadelphia, not far from where we are, and it was the Symphony or the Orchestra of Pittsburgh or something. And it was really cool because they had, all sorts of footage that went with the music and games and stuff like that. Some special sequences that were done specially for, I think, Symphony of the Goddess. Super, super cool. Wish I had gotten a T-shirt or something from there.
Maybe you could find something on eBay or something.
Yeah, I could. It's not going to be the same. But anyway, so we are definitely enthusiasts. Definitely love The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next point, which we've kind of talked about a few things, but we are enthusiasts. We are not experts.
No way.
I like to think that I know a lot about it, and I tend to be a detail-oriented person, but I am not one who has everything memorized. I mean, there are people, it seems like this is their full-time job, who just study all of the languages, who study the various races within the story world of Hyrule and The Legend of Zelda, and know which race came from where and all this kind of stuff. That is not us.
Yeah, no way. It's not us in any way.
Yeah, but we will do our best to stay as true and accurate as we can, but we might need some grace every once in a while if we mess something up, because I'm sure we will. So anyway, I don't know how much more I want to cover in this episode, but we want to kind of keep it broad strokes, not get into too much of the lore, but I think we'll do an episode on the timeline.
Ooh, that's
how the various
fun.
games fit together. I think we could also do an episode too on just about, I don't know, we could cover like you said, characters, dungeons, shrines. We could do an episode where we just review, kind of talk about Tears of the Kingdom. There's a whole lot here that we could cover. And the interesting thing, maybe this is something that our listeners will appreciate, or maybe they don't know this, but in most games you have a sequence of events. If you're following a Star Wars game or if you're following whatever, they fit into the storyline somehow, right? So
Yeah.
One is typically a sequel off the next, and they work oftentimes, not always, oftentimes in sequential order, right?
Yeah.
The Legend of Zelda is not that.
Unless for a very few games, like the first and second games, they were sequels based off of each other. Like they came right after each other. But most games, if you just knew about this one game, you would just figure, oh, this is just one game. It's not a series at all. But if you get into the nitty-gritty and look a little bit at the lore, you'll find out that all of the games are connected somehow. Yeah,
so they're all connected. They all fit into a storyline, a timeline. And so oftentimes people talk about, the first game not the first game to be released, but the first game in the storyline was Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
Which some people will be familiar with. Twilight Princess is in there, but that happens like post Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and all that kind of stuff. So, and then you get to where Breath of the Wild is. It happens in the timeline of things like thousands of years later.
Yeah.
And which is an interesting sort of discussion point about time within The Legend of Zelda. I'm sure we can talk about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Why don't we close out? Let's talk specifically just about Breath of the Wild, since that's a game that probably most of our listeners are familiar with. And so with Breath of the Wild, I mean, some of the things that I love about this game, about this. The things I love about this game are the open world, right? I mean, you can go out into this world and you can go essentially anywhere. Right? I mean...
Yeah.
We're both yawning. This is so strange. We must have... late night recording here.
Yeah.
But if we talk about Breath of the Wild, so you start off on the Great Plateau, so you can't go everywhere when it first starts, but you can, later on. But I love the open world part.
Yeah, the open world, it's great. And the inventory system is also great.
Yeah, okay, so that's a great point. The inventory where, before you had a limited wallet, you could only hold so many rupees, which was so frustrating in the earlier games. But Breath of the Wild, they kind of took care of that. You basically have an unlimited wallet. What if Link has, what if the rupees, that's great, he can collect them, but what if Link has a Sheikah debit card, and that's what the Sheikah Slate is. So he doesn't have to worry about how much rupees he can actually hold. It just sort of goes into his Sheikah debit card or credit card.
And then he just types on the tablet or the slate or whatever, and
or he
just
just
says,
taps it. He just puts it up to the reader and just bloop bloop.
But there's no reader in Hyrule that will take stuff. He just types on something.
Well, sure, not when he goes to the shops and things.
And he just dispenses rupees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yawning again. This is awful. Again, we should not be recording this late, I guess. He's looking out the window. It's still sunny, but
it's 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, but you've not had the week I've had. So, so we record this, little, as they say, behind the curtain here. We record this when we have an opportunity to, whether it's at night or on weekends. But between school and work and everything, we've got a lot going on. So
yeah, definitely.
So anyway, let's get back to Breath of the Wild. We love the open world, love the inventory system. You can have different armors, which I love. And you can have some of that in the earlier games a little bit. You can have enhancements. You can do...
almost anything.
This is awful.
And another thing is that Link has a super extended moveset. Ocarina of Time's moveset, yeah, that's cool, but this time, Link can parry attacks to a perfect shield thing. He can shield surf, shield jump. He can parry. He can, like, do a flurry type thing.
I think they investigated that a little bit with... you could do more things, more actions like that with Twilight Princess. You know, you could learn a couple of things. You do the whole dog howling thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you meet with the ancient knight or whatever he is. But then there's also, you know, Skyward Sword. You had the Wii Motion Plus. So you have the motion controls. You could do some more things. But it was one for one, pretty much. Like, you moved your hand, he moved, you know.
Most times.
Most times. It wasn't fantastic, but yeah, it would do that. So we talked about the cooking thing. You have all sorts of ingredients, things you can gather.
Yeah.
What I also love is that there's always something to do. I forget how many side quests there are, but there's
like at least 130.
130. I knew there was a lot. I mean, there's 120 shrines. There's several shrine quests. I think I remember somebody saying there's like 32 of those or something like that.
I thought I remember there being like 129 side quests or something.
Yeah, I know there's a lot, and they vary. Some are pretty easy. Some are
excruciating hard. Yeah.
Some are hard. But also, so what this game is, and Breath of the Wild, if you've played it, you know how this works. But, you know, the Breath of the Wild works a little differently. You don't have the typical dungeons.
No.
You don't have the typical pieces of heart. Although, I guess when you earn these little spirit orbs, you have to collect 4 of those in order to get a heart.
Or it's either a heart or a stamina vessel, which is something that has been reoccurring. Not reoccurring, it's been like in like 1 or 2 other Zelda games. So, like, if you run, it depletes stamina. If you climb, it depletes.
Because otherwise Link was pretty slow.
Yeah.
So they allowed you, so you couldn't just run all the time, but they used this mechanic in the game where you could run and walk or move faster, certainly. But then they also did what I was thinking about with the spirit orbs. It's kind of like where you had to get the piece of heart. You would get like the little quarter hearts all around, and you get 4 of those, and you get a full heart piece. So they did that with the spirit orb. So same thing, but different, you know.
Yeah.
Which I liked. I thought that was neat.
And it seems to be like a lot like more common rather than rare. It's just like pieces of heart. Like if you get one, you're like super happy. Yeah, it's super rare. But spirit orbs, you're just like, oh, there's 120 of these. Yeah, I can get them. And the way you get them is in these shrines, they call it. It's much more useful than just picking the pieces of heart in like a chest or doing a small side quest or something.
Or someplace else. Yeah, totally. And then you have the divine beasts that they have, which are things, you know, that you go after, and these are sort of dungeon-like things with some big baddies.
Yeah.
I would say probably throughout the game, what's different about the dungeons in other games is that each dungeon, you know, if there's 6 or 7 or whatever, you have a big baddie at the end of each one.
Yeah.
With Breath of the Wild, you really only have 4 baddies.
4 dungeons. It's kind of like Majora's Mask.
You have 4 major baddies. You have other mini bosses throughout, but then you have, Calamity Ganon.
Yeah,
and
the big baddie at the end.
Calamity Ganon Beast Form, or whatever it's called.
Dark Beast Ganon.
Dark Beast Ganon, yep. And so yeah, it's similar to other games in that way. We mentioned the 120 shrines, and what I also love about this game is that you can save anywhere. And
that is something I have experience in, especially when fighting a big bad Lionel and you're trying to collect his arrows. Like, you go behind a rock, you save, and then you collect something else. You go behind another rock, you save. You just keep doing that.
That was this morning you were doing that. You know, but also you were playing in master mode, so not just regular normal mode, but master mode where enemies regain their health and things are extra harder and stuff like that.
And there's just floating platforms of enemies everywhere.
There's definitely extra bad guys.
Except if you get DLC, which is master mode is in the DLC, the whole game becomes like a joke. The only hard parts are the bosses. and that's it, because the Majora's Mask basically just makes all the monsters just like, oh, hey, I don't see you. Yeah, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see you.
So there are some extra armors, and they have different functions and things. So Majora's Mask sort of allows you to sneak past bad guys, or they don't recognize you or whatever. So that's kind of fun. And you mentioned that there are some other nods to other things to other games in Breath of the Wild. Like we talked, different places, if you're familiar with Lon Lon Ranch, Castle Town, some of those kind of things are mentioned. Arbiter's Grounds, etc., that are in other games, there are nods to them in Breath of the Wild. So if you're a diehard Zelda fan, you are thrilled that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has all of those links and all those get it, has all those links. But has all those different nods to the earlier games. So we talked about what's next for The Legend of Zelda. We talked about, the sequel, what is now known as Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And so really looking forward to that. We assume that it takes place afterwards, but we don't know. We know very little about this game.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems as though Ganondorf will be back, which is the human form of Ganon in this series, in this storyline. Just go with it, even if you don't get it. Just go along with us, and so it's sort of an interesting take on that. When we first talked about writing this episode, when we were first talking about doing this, we didn't know the name, and we were kind of begging Nintendo, please tell us something. It's been too long, but Nintendo did it.
Yeah.
They gave us a trailer, they gave us a name, they gave us a date, so...
Which is basically everything we asked for except the game itself.
Well, there's some other things I want before I just get the game. I mean, I want to know a little bit more about the storyline. I'd love to know how these trailers all fit together, so there's...
But that will all be explained in the game.
I'm sure it will, but I'm not patient. That's what I'm trying to say.
Me neither.
Okay. All right. So I think we should wrap this up. I think we'll get into Tears of the Kingdom in another episode. We'll really dig into some other things. But, this was just a way for, I think, you and I to just sort of talk about
Zelda and many other topics, yeah.
Within the universe of The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling another yawn coming. So I think...
so am I. We're both very tired from a long week of everything.
And it's also quite warm in this room. This is our first time recording in this room, and it's warm.
It is very warm.
Got to figure out how to fix that. So anyway, so what would you say? Let's. I'd love to hear from our listeners. Too. Like, what's your favorite Zelda game? What is your favorite part of the storyline? If for those of you that know about the storyline, if you've never heard of Zelda, maybe you could let us know about that. We'd love to chat and introduce it to you. And drop us a comment down below. We'd love to connect with you, or you can message us on Instagram at the Weirdly Random. And we're there. We're on YouTube. If you're listening to us on there, we are trying to get it up onto iTunes and Spotify and those kinds of places as well. We do have a Facebook page, Facebook / The Weirdly Random. So we're trying to get that up as well. But we would love to connect with you and hear what your thoughts are, hear what you're most excited about, perhaps even in the sequel of Breath of the Wild, now known as Tears of the Kingdom. So you can subscribe to our channel, hit the like there, and if you hit that notification bell, I'm told that you'll be notified when we release something new. So any closing remarks here, Reilly, before we go? Not really.
I mean, stay tuned, I guess people say. We're going to release more episodes and stuff about this.
We are, and we'll certainly release more episodes about The Legend of Zelda as well. I think our next episode is actually talking a little bit about kind of do another broad strokes episode about another favorite of mine, Doctor Who. And get into Doctor Who, sci-fi series, British sci-fi series, something we can talk about that I know a lot about, probably more than than you do. So maybe
Definitely.
you interview me and we talk questions or something like that. So, all right, folks. So that's it for today, and we will catch you later.
Bye.
One of the things. Bye. One of the things we forgot to do, or one of the things we talked about doing was to come up with sort of our own little little closing remarks here. How do we close off? And so we talked about stay weird, be random, but never fail to be kind.
I love it. It's amazing.
All right, so we're gonna do it for realsies this time. So thanks, folks. Thanks for listening today. Catch you next time. My name is Steve, and this is Reilly.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time. But remember, stay weird, be random, and never fail to be kind. Sayonara, folks.